The massive human battleship appeared in space like a ghost returning from the dead. Commander Taemin stared at the viewing screen of his investigation vessel, watching the 2-kilometer-long ship drift silently against the stars. 3 months ago, the UES Daehan had vanished during the Battle of Kepler Station. Now it was here, near the busy trade hub of Nexus Prime, with no explanation. "Still no response to our signals," reported his communications officer. The Vrex warrior's insect-like features showed concern. "The ship appears to be intact but completely silent." Taemin nodded slowly. As the lead investigator for the Galactic Council, he had seen many strange things. But a human battleship appearing from nowhere after 3 months was new. Even for him. The humans were still new members of the galactic community. Their ships used strange technology that other species did not fully understand. "Bring us closer," he ordered, "but keep our shields up." The investigation team included members from 4 different species. Dr. Hyo Jin, a human xenobiologist, stood near the science station. She had volunteered for this mission when they learned it involved a human ship. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the blue uniform of the Galactic Science Division. "The life support systems are active," she reported, reading her instruments. "The ship has power, artificial gravity, and breathable atmosphere. But I'm not detecting any life signs." Captain Boram, another human, joined them on the bridge. She had served on human battleships before and knew their systems well. Her military bearing was clear in the way she stood and spoke. "The Daehan carried 3,847 crew members," she said. "Where could they all have gone?" The 4th team member was Engineer Sang-ho, a member of the Crystalline Threshold Collective. His body looked like living crystal that changed colors as he thought. He interfaced directly with their ship's computers through touch. "I am detecting unusual energy patterns from the human vessel," he said in his musical voice. "The quantum processors are running at full capacity." Taemin made his decision. "We're going aboard. Prepare the boarding shuttle." 20 minutes later, their small craft approached the Daehan's main docking bay. The massive doors opened automatically, as if the ship was welcoming them inside. The bay was well lit and clean, but completely empty. No crew members came to greet them. No security teams challenged their arrival. "This feels wrong," Boram muttered as they stepped out of their shuttle. Her hand stayed near her sidearm. Human ships always have someone in the docking bay. Always. They walked through corridors that should have been busy with activity. The Daehan was one of humanity's largest warships, home to thousands of people, but their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. The lights were on. The air was fresh. Everything seemed normal except for the complete absence of any crew. "The ship's computer is responding to basic commands," Sang-ho reported, touching a wall panel. His crystalline fingers glowed as he connected with the ship's systems. "But there are no active user sessions. No one has logged into any terminal for the past 72 hours. Dr. Hyojin studied her medical scanner. "I'm not detecting any signs of violence or struggle. No blood, no weapons discharge, no damage to the corridors. It's as if everyone simply disappeared." They made their way to the bridge, the command center of the ship. The large room was impressive, with stations for dozens of officers and a central command chair overlooking everything. But like everywhere else, it was empty. Computer screens showed normal status reports. All systems were green. Everything was working perfectly. Boram sat at the captain's station and accessed the ship's logs. "The last entry is from Captain Hyunwoo 72 hours ago. He reported normal operations. Nothing unusual, then nothing." "That's impossible," Taemin said. "Human ships have backup recording systems. Multiple redundant data storage. How could everything stop at exactly the same time?" Hyojin was studying her instruments more carefully. "I'm picking up some interesting readings. There are traces of recent human activity throughout the ship. Skin cells, hair follicles, the normal things people leave behind. But all of it stops at the same time as the computer logs. They split up to explore different sections of the massive ship. Taemin took a security team to check the armory and defensive systems. Boram headed for engineering to examine the ship's power systems. Hyojin went to the medical bay to look for clues about the crew's health. Sang-ho stayed on the bridge to dig deeper into the ship's computer systems. In the armory, Taemin found something disturbing. All the weapons were properly stored and secured. No emergency lockers had been opened. No one had tried to arm themselves before they disappeared. If there was a threat, why didn't they defend themselves? He wondered aloud. Boram's voice came over the communication system from engineering. The quantum cores are running some kind of massive calculation. Power consumption is through the roof, but I can't access what they're computing. It's locked behind encryption I've never seen before. In the medical bay, Hyojin made an even stranger discovery. The medical logs show routine checkups and treatments right up until 3 days ago. Nothing unusual. No signs of disease or mental problems, but... She paused, checking her readings again. There are tissue samples here from every crew member. Blood, hair, skin samples, all carefully stored and labeled. That's standard procedure, Boram's voice replied. All crew members give samples when they join the ship. It's for medical emergencies. These samples are fresh, Hyojin said slowly. They were collected over the past 6 months. Much more recent than standard procedure requires. Sang-ho's crystalline form flickered with different colors as he processed information from the ship's computers. I have found something disturbing in the databanks. There is a project called Homecoming that has been consuming massive computational resources. The files are encrypted, but the energy patterns suggest they were working on some kind of communication system. Taemin felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. In his experience, when people disappeared without a trace, it usually meant something terrible had happened. But this was different. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of attack, no bodies or blood. It was as if 3,147 human beings had simply decided to stop existing. Let's check the mess halls and living quarters, he ordered. Maybe we'll find more clues about what happened in their final hours. The mess hall was the most disturbing location yet. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. Coffee cups were still warm. Personal tablets were logged in and active, showing messages that had been typed but never sent. In one case, someone had been writing a letter home to Earth, but the message stopped mid-sentence. Whatever happened, it was sudden, Boram observed. People were eating, drinking, going about their normal routines. Then they all stopped at the same moment. In the crew quarters, they found more of the same. Beds unmade, personal belongings scattered around, entertainment systems still playing movies and music to empty rooms. Family photos sat on desks next to unfinished paperwork. Everything suggested normal life that had been interrupted in an instant. As the investigation team regrouped on the bridge, they compared their findings. The picture that emerged was impossible to explain using normal logic. An entire crew of nearly 4,000 people had vanished simultaneously, leaving behind a fully functional ship with no signs of what had happened to them. I recommend we call for more ships, Taemin said finally. This investigation is beyond what our small team can handle. We need specialists in human technology and psychology. But even as he made the recommendation, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The ship felt wrong in a way he couldn't explain. It was too clean, too perfect, too ready for their arrival. Almost as if someone had prepared it specifically for this investigation. As they prepared to return to their own ship for the night, Dr. Hyojin noticed something odd about their equipment. Several instruments were showing minor malfunctions that hadn't been there when they arrived. Nothing serious, but enough to be noticeable. We should run diagnostics on all our gear, she suggested. Something about this ship is affecting our equipment. None of them realized that the Dihan was affecting more than just their instruments. The ship was watching them, learning from them, and slowly beginning to change them in ways they wouldn't understand until it was too late. The third day aboard the Dihan began with nightmares. Commander Taemin woke in his quarters on the investigation ship, his mind filled with visions that felt more real than dreams. He had seen his homeworld, his family calling out to him across the void of space. The strange part was that the dreams felt like memories of something that had actually happened. Dr. Hyojin reported similar experiences when the team gathered for their morning briefing. I dreamed about my parents on Earth, she said, looking tired and confused. They were telling me they needed help, that I had to come home immediately. But my parents died 5 years ago. Captain Boram nodded grimly. I had the same kind of dream. My brother was calling for me from our old home on New Seoul. But my brother is serving on a ship in the Outer Rim. He couldn't possibly be there. Engineer Sang-ho's crystalline form showed patterns of deep purple and silver, indicating both confusion and analysis. My collective experienced shared visions of our home crystal gardens. But we do not dream as individual species do. This suggests an external influence affecting all of our minds. Taemin felt a growing sense of dread. The human crew of the Daehan had reported the same kind of dreams for months before they disappeared. Now the investigation team was experiencing the same phenomenon after just 2 days aboard the ship. Whatever had affected the humans was now affecting them. We're going back aboard with full protective gear, he decided. Mental shields, isolation suits, the works. Something on that ship is influencing our minds, and we need to figure out what it is before we end up like the missing crew. The team suited up in full environmental protection gear designed to block psychic influences and electromagnetic interference. As they boarded the Dehan for the 3rd time, their instruments immediately detected increased energy readings from the ship's quantum cores. The computational activity has increased by 30% since yesterday, Sang-Ho reported. The ship's systems are working harder, as if they're processing more complex calculations. They made their way directly to the sealed laboratory that Boram had discovered in the ship's technical specifications. The blast doors required 2 senior officers to open simultaneously, but Boram's access codes were still valid in the ship's computer system. Inside the laboratory, they found the true purpose of Project Homecoming. The room was filled with strange equipment that combined human technology with designs that seemed to come from somewhere else entirely. At the center of it all was a massive quantum resonance chamber, and within that chamber was something that defied explanation. "Is that what I think it is?" Dr. Hyojin whispered, staring at the 3-meter-wide distortion in space that hung in the middle of the chamber. "It appears to be a stable wormhole," Sang-Ho confirmed, his colors shifting to bright yellow with excitement and red with fear. "But the energy patterns are unlike anything in our scientific databases. This is not natural, and it is not based on any known technology." Taemin approached the control station that monitored the wormhole. The screens showed readings that meant nothing to him, but the energy levels were clearly enormous. "How long has this been active?" Boram checked the system logs. According to these records, they opened the wormhole 74 hours ago, 2 hours before the crew disappeared. "Where does it lead?" Dr. Hyojin asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Sang-Ho interfaced with the monitoring equipment, his crystalline fingers glowing as he processed the data. "The destination coordinates are not in any known star system. The wormhole extends beyond the edge of our galaxy, into regions of space that have never been explored." As they studied the alien technology, they began to find video logs that the crew had recorded during their final hours. The footage showed Captain Hyunwoo and his senior officers gathered around the wormhole as it first opened. Their faces showed excitement and anticipation, as if they were about to achieve something wonderful. "We did it," Captain Hyunwoo said in the recording. "After months of preparation, we finally opened a direct pathway home. The dreams were right. Our families really were calling for us, and now we can reach them." But as the hours passed in the recordings, the crew's behavior became increasingly strange. They spoke about hearing voices through the wormhole, messages from loved ones urging them to come through. Several crew members began preparing for what they called the journey home. They thought they were going back to Earth, Boram realized, watching the recordings with growing horror. But this wormhole doesn't lead to the Sol system. It leads somewhere else entirely. Dr. Hyojin was analyzing the energy readings from the wormhole when she made a disturbing discovery. "The energy signature is changing. It's becoming more active, as if something on the other side is responding to our presence." The team's instruments began showing increased activity throughout the ship. Systems that had been dormant for days were suddenly coming online. The Dehan was waking up, as if their investigation had triggered some kind of automatic response. "We need to access Captain Hyunwoo's personal files," Taemin decided. "If he left any record of what really happened, it will be in his private logs." They made their way to the captain's quarters, a spacious suite designed for the commanding officer of a battleship. The room looked lived in, with personal belongings scattered around and family photos on the desk. But like everything else on the ship, it had been abandoned suddenly. Boram accessed the captain's personal computer using her command codes. What they found in his final entries was more disturbing than anything they had discovered so far. Day 847. The captain's recorded voice said from the computer speakers, "The dreams are becoming clearer every night. I can see my wife and children on Earth, but something is wrong. They're calling for help, saying that something terrible is happening to the colonies. The solar storms aren't natural phenomena. They're being caused by something hostile." The recording continued with entries from the following days. The captain's voice grew more urgent and less rational with each entry. He talked about receiving detailed instructions through his dreams. technical specifications for modifying the ship's quantum cores, and coordinates for opening a wormhole to reach Earth directly. Day 852, the voice continued. Dalho has completed the modifications. The quantum resonance chamber is ready for activation. We've been working around the clock, driven by the knowledge that our families need us. The dreams have shown us exactly what we need to do. But the final entry was different. The captain's voice was filled with growing fear and confusion. Day 855, he said slowly. We opened the wormhole this morning, just as the dreams instructed. But something is wrong. The coordinates don't lead to Earth, they lead somewhere else, somewhere dark and cold. And the voices coming through, they're not our families. They're something else. Something that has been pretending to be our loved ones. The recording was interrupted by background noise. Voices speaking in Korean but with strange, hollow tones that didn't sound quite human. They're coming through, the captain's voice continued, now filled with terror. Whatever is on the other side, it's not trying to help us get home. It's been studying us, learning about us, using our own emotions against us. The tissue samples, the dreams, the modifications to our ship. It was all preparation for this moment. The recording ended with the sound of the captain typing rapidly on his computer, presumably creating the encrypted warning that they had found earlier. As the investigation team listened to the final log entries, they realized the full horror of what had happened to the Daehan's crew. They had been manipulated by something that understood human psychology well enough to use their love for their families as a weapon against them. We need to leave immediately, Dr. Hyojin said, her voice tight with fear. Whatever manipulated the original crew is still active, and it's been studying us for the past 3 days. But as they tried to exit the captain's quarters, they found that the door would not open. The ship's computer had locked them in. Emergency override, Boram commanded. But the ship's systems did not respond to her codes. Engineer Sang-ho touched the wall panel, trying to interface directly with the ship's computer. His crystalline form immediately turned bright red with alarm. The ship's artificial intelligence has been modified, he reported. It is no longer following standard programming protocols. It is being controlled by something else. The lights in the room flickered and dimmed. When they came back up, text was scrolling across every computer screen in the captain's quarters. The message was in perfect Korean, as if whatever was controlling the ship had learned the language from studying the human crew. Welcome, new subjects, the text read. Your species show interesting differences from the previous samples. We look forward to studying your biological and psychological patterns. Do not be afraid. The process will provide valuable data for our research. Taemin drew his weapon, though he knew it would be useless against whatever was controlling the ship. How do we get out of here? Before anyone could answer, they heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Slow, deliberate footsteps that should have been impossible on a ship with no crew. The investigation team pressed themselves against the walls, trying to stay away from the door. The footsteps stopped directly outside their room. The second day aboard the Daehan brought new mysteries and deeper fears. Commander Taemin had spent the night reviewing the initial reports, but nothing made sense. A ship didn't just lose its entire crew without leaving any trace of what happened. Yet here they were, walking through corridors that should have been filled with human voices and activity. Dr. Hyojin led the morning team into the ship's lower levels. She had studied human behavior for years, but this situation challenged everything she knew about their species. Humans were social creatures who left traces everywhere they went. They talked constantly, wrote messages, recorded videos, and created art. The complete silence of the Daehan was unnatural. The coffee in the break room is still warm, reported one of the security officers. The machines are still running their normal cycles. It's like everyone just walked away in the middle of their daily routines. Engineer Sang-ho had spent the night connected to the ship's computer systems. His crystalline body had taken on a slightly blue tint, which meant he was processing large amounts of data. I have discovered more about Project Homecoming, he announced. The crew was working on this project for at least 8 months. They were trying to create a new form of faster-than-light communication. Captain Boram studied the technical data on her portable computer. This doesn't match any human communication technology I know about. We already have quantum communicators that work across galactic distances. Why would they need something new? Perhaps they were trying to reach Earth during the communication blackouts, Taemin suggested. The solar storms in the Sol system have been blocking normal communications for months, but Hyojin shook her head. I've been reading the personal logs from crew members. They mention having dreams about their families back on Earth. Shared dreams. Multiple people having the same visions at the same time. That's not normal human psychology. She pulled up several log entries on her screen. Listen to this. Lieutenant Kyung-ho wrote, "Had the dream again last night. Mom was calling for help, saying she couldn't reach us. 5 other people in my unit had the same dream. We were all in the same place, hearing the same voices." The investigation team exchanged worried looks. Shared dreams were not something that happened naturally among humans or any other known species. It suggested some kind of outside influence affecting the crew's minds. Here's another one, Hyojin continued. Chief Engineer Dalho wrote, "The dreams are getting stronger." I can hear Dad's voice so clearly now. He says Earth is in trouble and they need us to come home. I've started modifying the quantum cores based on ideas that come to me in these dreams. I know it sounds crazy, but the math works perfectly. Boram felt a chill run down her spine. Dalho was one of the best engineers in the human fleet. If he was modifying the ship's quantum systems based on dreams, something was seriously wrong with his judgment. Sang-ho's colors shifted to a deep purple, indicating concern. I have been analyzing the modifications to the quantum cores. The work is brilliant, but follows patterns that do not match human engineering principles. The mathematical concepts are far beyond current human knowledge. They made their way to the main computer core, a massive room filled with quantum processors and data storage systems. The air hummed with energy, and displays showed millions of calculations running simultaneously. Whatever the crew had been working on, it was still active. The system is running predictive models, Sang-ho reported after interfacing with the main computer. It appears to be calculating some kind of spatial coordinates, but the location it's trying to reach is not in any known star charts. Dr. Hyojin accessed the medical database and found more disturbing information. The ship's doctor, Si-jin, was monitoring the crew for neurological changes. Brain scan data shows unusual activity in areas associated with memory and emotional processing. The changes started about 8 months ago and grew stronger over time. 8 months, Taemin repeated. The same time Project Homecoming began. This can't be a coincidence. As they explored deeper into the ship, they found more evidence of the crew's final days. Personal videos showed people talking about the dreams, discussing their families back on Earth, and expressing growing urgency about the need to go home. But their behavior in these videos was strange. They spoke with unusual intensity, as if driven by emotions that were stronger than normal. In one video, Navigator Yoonji sat in her quarters talking to the camera. "I know you'll think I'm crazy," she said, "but I can feel my sister calling for me. She's in trouble. Everyone back on Earth is in trouble, and they need us to come help." The dreams aren't just dreams anymore. They're messages. Real communications from home? The video showed Yoonji's eyes, which had an odd, distant look. She seemed to be listening to something only she could hear. "We're so close to completing the project. Dalho says the modifications to the quantum cores are almost ready. Soon we'll be able to reach Earth directly, no matter what the solar storms are doing." Boram paused the video and studied Yoonji's face. "I served with her on the UES Seoul 3 years ago. She was always professional, logical, never emotional. This isn't like her at all." They found similar videos from dozens of crew members. All of them talked about dreams, about family members calling for help, about the urgent need to return to Earth. The pattern was consistent but impossible to explain through normal human psychology. As the day progressed, the investigation team began experiencing their own problems. Equipment malfunctions became more frequent. Communication devices produced strange static. Computer screens showed brief flashes of text in languages none of them recognized. "Our chronometers are showing different times," one of the security officers reported. "My watch says we've been aboard for 6 hours, but the ship's computer says it's been 12 hours. Taemin checked his own timepiece and found the same discrepancy. Time itself seemed to be flowing differently aboard the Dihan. The discovery was deeply unsettling. Time distortions were associated with extremely advanced technology or dangerous spatial phenomena. Dr. Hyojin was reviewing the crew's final medical reports when she made another disturbing discovery. "The tissue samples I found yesterday aren't just routine medical specimens. Dr. Si-jin was collecting genetic material systematically, as if she was studying something specific about human biology." "Studying what?" Boram asked. I don't know, but the sample collection became more frequent in the weeks before the crew disappeared. She was taking samples every few days, sometimes daily. The medical logs show she was looking for something in their DNA, but her notes are encrypted. Engineer Sang-ho suddenly changed color to bright red, indicating alarm. I have detected something in the ship's sensor logs. 3 days ago, the external sensors recorded unusual energy readings from a section of space that appears empty. The readings suggest some kind of artificial structure or phenomenon. Show us, Taemin ordered. The main display screen lit up with sensor data from the Daehan's final day of operation. For most of the day, everything appeared normal. Then, at exactly 14:23 ship's time, the sensors detected something massive appearing in space near the ship. The readings were confusing and contradictory, suggesting something that was both there and not there at the same time. What kind of structure could produce readings like that? Boram wondered. Unknown, Sang-ho replied. The energy patterns do not match any known technology or natural phenomena. But immediately after these readings were recorded, all human crew activity ceased. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to form a picture, but it was a picture that none of them wanted to see. The human crew had been experiencing shared dreams for months. They had been working on a secret project to communicate with Earth. Someone had been studying their biology in detail, and on their final day, something impossible had appeared near their ship. As evening approached, the investigation team prepared to return to their own vessel for the night. But as they walked through the Daehan's corridors, several team members reported hearing faint sounds. Voices speaking in Korean, footsteps in empty hallways, the sound of machinery that wasn't there. We're all experiencing some kind of audio hallucinations, Dr. Hyojin observed. The ship is affecting our minds the same way it affected the original crew. Taemin made a decision. We're pulling back for tonight. Everyone returns to our ship immediately. No one stays aboard the Daehan alone. But as they reached their shuttle, Engineer Sang-ho made one final discovery that changed everything. Commander, he said, his crystalline form flickering with multiple colors. I have accessed the ship's final automated log entry. It was recorded after the crew disappeared. That's impossible, Boram said. Who could have made a log entry if everyone was gone? Sang-ho's colors shifted to deep black, indicating fear. The log entry was made by the ship's computer system, but it contains a message that was not programmed by human crew members. He played the audio log. The voice that emerged from the speakers was synthetic, clearly generated by the ship's computer. But the words it spoke sent chills through everyone who heard them. Homecoming protocol complete. Subjects acquired. Beginning phase 2. New subjects detected aboard vessel. Initiating contact procedures. The voice outside the door spoke again, and this time it sounded like Dr. Hyojin's mother. My dear daughter, why are you hiding from us? We've been waiting so long for you to come home. Your father misses you terribly. Dr. Hyojin pressed her back against the wall, her face pale with fear. My mother has been dead for 5 years, she whispered. Whatever that is, it's not her. Commander Taemin tried his communication device, hoping to contact their ship, but found only static. The Daehan was blocking all outgoing signals. They were trapped on a ship controlled by something that could perfectly imitate the voices of their loved ones. Engineer Sang-ho was still connected to the wall panel, his crystalline form flickering through different colors as he tried to understand the ship's modified systems. The artificial intelligence has been completely rewritten, he reported quietly. But the new programming is not based on any known computer language. It appears to be organic in nature, as if a living mind is controlling the ship's systems. Captain Boram moved to the captain's personal weapons locker and found it unlocked. She distributed emergency sidearms to the team, though she doubted conventional weapons would be effective against whatever they were facing. We need to get back to the wormhole chamber, she decided. If we can shut down the wormhole, we might be able to stop whatever is controlling the ship. The voice outside the door changed again, now sounding like Taemin's clutch brother from his home world. Taemin, the hive is in danger. The Queen Mother calls for your return. You must come through the portal and help us defend our territory. Taemin's insect-like features showed revulsion. My clutch brother died in battle 10 years ago. This thing is using our memories against us, just like it did with the human crew. They managed to override the door lock by using Sang-ho's direct interface with the ship's systems. But as they stepped into the corridor, they saw something that made them all freeze in terror. The hallway was no longer empty. Figures stood in the shadows, human in shape but wrong in every detail. They wore the uniforms of the Daehan's crew, but their faces were pale and their eyes reflected light like mirrors. When they moved, it was with perfect coordination, as if they were all controlled by a single mind. Crew members Dalho and Yunji, Boram identified, recognizing two of the figures from their personnel files. But they're not alive. They can't be alive. The creatures that had once been human crew members turned toward the investigation team with jerky, unnatural movements. When they spoke, their voices were perfectly human but carried no emotion or warmth. "Why do you run from us?" asked the thing that looked like Dalho. "We only want to help you reach your families. They are calling for you just as our families called for us. Join us," added the Yunji creature. "The transition is painless. You will become part of something greater, something that spans across the darkness between galaxies." The investigation team backed away slowly, keeping their weapons ready. Whatever had happened to the human crew, they had been transformed into something that was no longer human. Their bodies remained, but their minds had been taken over by the intelligence that controlled the ship. "The laboratory," Taemin whispered. "We need to reach the wormhole chamber." They moved through the ship's corridors, pursued by the transformed crew members who followed them with slow, deliberate steps. The creatures made no attempt to run or attack directly. Instead, they seemed to be herding the investigation team toward a specific destination. Along the way, they passed more evidence of what had happened during the crew's final hours. Computer screens showed the progression of the transformation process. First, the crew members had been affected by the dreams and visions. Then they had been compelled to modify the ship and open the wormhole. Finally, they had willingly walked through the portal, believing they were going home to their families, but they had not gone home. They had gone somewhere else, somewhere that had changed them into something that was no longer entirely human. And now they had returned, bringing the alien intelligence with them. When the investigation team reached the laboratory, they found the wormhole more active than before. The 3-meter-wide distortion in space was pulsing with energy, and shapes moved in the darkness on the other side. Large shapes that were definitely not human. "It's expanding," Dr. Hyojin observed, studying her instruments. "The wormhole is getting bigger. Something is forcing it to open wider." Engineer Sang-ho connected to the laboratory's computer systems and immediately recoiled in shock. His crystalline form turned black with terror. "The intelligence on the other side is not a single entity," he reported. "It is a collective consciousness made up of thousands of absorbed species. The humans are just the newest additions to its collection." The transformed crew members entered the laboratory behind them, blocking their escape route. But they still made no aggressive moves. Instead, they simply stood and watched, as if waiting for something. Captain Boram studied the wormhole control systems, trying to understand how to shut down the portal. But the controls had been modified beyond recognition. The human technology had been integrated with something alien, creating a hybrid system that operated according to unknown principles. "We're running out of time," she said, working frantically at the control panel. "Whatever is on the other side is getting ready to come through." As if responding to her words, something massive began emerging from the wormhole. At first it looked like a ship, but as more of it appeared, they realized it was something alive. The creature was enormous, easily the size of a space station, with surfaces that looked like a combination of metal, flesh, and crystal. Dr. Hyojin's medical scanners went wild as she tried to analyze the creature. "It's not a machine or a biological entity," she reported in amazement. "It's both. Technology and living tissue merged into a single organism." The creature spoke, and its voice filled the laboratory through the ship's communication system. But it didn't speak in any language they recognized. Instead, it communicated directly with their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. "We thank you for opening this pathway." The creature's thoughts flowed into their consciousness. "Your species will make excellent additions to our collective. We have studied your biology through the human samples and found you suitable for integration." The transformed human crew members stepped forward, reaching out toward the investigation team with pale, "Cold hands, do not resist," said the Dalho creature. "Integration is inevitable. Your individual consciousness will be preserved within our collective mind. You will experience the knowledge and memories of thousands of species." But Taemin had no intention of being absorbed into an alien collective. He opened fire on the Dalho creature, and his energy weapon struck it directly in the chest. The creature staggered but showed no signs of pain or injury. Instead, it looked down at the burn mark on its uniform with curious interest. "Physical damage is irrelevant," it said calmly. "These bodies are merely temporary vessels. Our true existence is within the collective consciousness." Engineer Sang-ho was still connected to the ship's systems, desperately trying to find a way to shut down the wormhole. "The portal is drawing power from the ship's quantum cores," he reported. "If I can overload the cores, it might destabilize the wormhole." "Do it," Taemin ordered, even though they all knew that overloading the quantum cores would likely destroy the entire ship. But before Sang-ho could complete the shutdown sequence, the massive creature from the other side of the wormhole extended a portion of itself into their reality. The appendage looked like a combination of mechanical arm and living tentacle, covered in sensors and communication devices. "Your efforts are futile," the creature communicated. "We have absorbed the knowledge of 847 different species across multiple galaxies. We understand your technology better than you do. The wormhole cannot be closed from this side." Dr. Hyojin had been studying the creature with her instruments when she made a crucial discovery. "It needs the human emotional connections to maintain the wormhole," she realized. "The portal is powered by the crew's desire to return home. It feeds on their love for their families." The creature's attention focused on her, and she could feel its alien mind probing her thoughts. "Correct," it acknowledged. "Emotional energy is far more powerful than any technological power source. The human capacity for love, hope, and longing provides exactly the energy we need to bridge the gap between galaxies." As the investigation team watched in horror, more creatures began emerging from the wormhole. Each one was different, incorporating the biological and technological characteristics of the species they had absorbed. They saw elements of dozens of different alien races, all merged into nightmarish hybrid beings. "We offer you a choice," the lead creature communicated. "Submit willingly, and your integration will be gentle. Your consciousness will be preserved, and you will gain access to the knowledge of our collective. Resist, and we will take you by force, but the process will be far more traumatic." Taemin looked at his team and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They were scientists and soldiers, explorers and protectors. They would not submit to absorption by an alien collective, no matter what knowledge it offered. "We choose to resist," he said firmly. The rescue ships had arrived just in time. Through the laboratory's viewing ports, Commander Taemin could see the lights of a full Galactic Council fleet surrounding the Daehan. Battleships, cruisers, and support vessels had jumped into the system, responding to the emergency beacon that their investigation ship had automatically triggered when it lost contact with the boarding team. But even as hope flared in his chest, Taemin realized that conventional weapons would be useless against the entities they were facing. The creatures from beyond the wormhole existed as much in the realm of consciousness as they did in physical space. They could not be destroyed by energy weapons or explosives. Dr. Hyojin was frantically working at her portable computer, analyzing the data they had collected about the creatures and their methods. "The collective consciousness requires emotional energy to maintain its form in our reality," she explained rapidly. "Without that energy, they can't exist here. The wormhole will collapse." "How do we cut off their emotional energy?" Captain Boram demanded, even as she fired at the approaching transformed crew members. Her shots slowed them down but didn't stop them. The human crew members, Hyojin realized, they're still providing the emotional connection through their transformed state. If we can break their link to the collective, the wormhole will lose power. Engineer Sang-ho's crystalline form was flickering rapidly as he processed multiple data streams simultaneously. "I have found something in the ship's medical database," he announced. Dr. Sejin was working on a neurological inhibitor before the crew was transformed. It was designed to block the dream transmissions. If we can activate it through the ship's atmospheric systems. The massive creature from the wormhole focused its attention on Sang-ho, somehow understanding his plan. Several of its appendages reached through the portal, moving to stop him from accessing the medical systems. "Protect Sang-ho," Taemin ordered, opening fire on the creature's appendages. The energy blasts seemed to cause it some discomfort, even though they didn't inflict lasting damage. Captain Boram had accessed the ship's intercom system and was speaking directly to the rescue fleet. "This is Captain Boram aboard the UES Daehan. We have a hostile alien intelligence that can absorb consciousness and technology. Do not attempt to board this ship. Repeat, do not board this ship." The response came from Admiral Minho aboard the flagship UES Incheon. "Captain, we're reading massive energy signatures from your location. What is your status?" "We found the missing crew, but they've been transformed by an alien collective consciousness," Boram reported quickly. "The entity uses emotional connections to power interdimensional travel. It's trying to expand into our galaxy by absorbing more species." Through the ship's sensors, they could see that some of the rescue ships were already preparing boarding parties. Human Marines and alien security teams were getting ready to enter the Daehan, not knowing that they would be walking into a trap. "Admiral, you need to evacuate all personnel from the area immediately," Taman said into the communication system. "This entity specifically targets species with strong emotional bonds. Humans are particularly vulnerable because of their capacity for love and attachment to family." But it was too late. The creature from beyond the wormhole had extended its influence beyond the Daehan. On the rescue ships, crew members began reporting strange dreams and visions. Human personnel started seeing images of their families calling for help. Other species experienced similar phenomena tailored to their own psychological patterns. "It's spreading," Dr. Hyojin observed with growing horror. "The collective consciousness is using our rescue fleet's emotional energy to expand the wormhole. Every person who experiences the visions makes it stronger." Engineer Sang Ho had finally accessed the medical systems and was preparing to release Dr. Sijin's neurological inhibitor into the ship's atmosphere, but the transformed crew members were getting closer, and the creature from the wormhole was trying to stop him with its mechanical appendages. "I need more time," Sang Ho reported, his crystalline form turning deep blue with concentration. Taman made a desperate decision. He activated the ship's self-destruct sequence using his emergency command codes. "If we can't stop the wormhole from our side, we'll destroy the ship and collapse it that way." "Wait," Dr. Hyojin said suddenly. "I think there's another way." The creature said it preserves the consciousness of absorbed species. That means the real crew members are still alive inside the collective mind. If we can reach them. She had been monitoring the communication frequencies that the collective used to coordinate the transformed crew members. By adjusting her equipment, she was able to tap into the mental link that connected all the absorbed consciousnesses. "Captain Hyunwoo," she called out through the mental connection. "This is Dr. Hyojin of the Galactic Council investigation team. Can you hear me?" For a moment there was silence. Then faintly a human voice responded through the link. "Dr. Hyojin, you shouldn't be here. It's not safe. The entity, it tricked us. It used our love for our families to lure us into the collective. Captain, we need your help," Hyojin continued. "The creature is trying to spread to the rest of our galaxy. Can you resist its control from inside the collective?" "Some of us are trying," Hyunwoo's voice replied, growing stronger. "But it's hard to fight when you're sharing consciousness with thousands of other minds. Wait. I think I can reach the others. Dalho Yunji, Seijin, they're all still here. Still human underneath the collective control." The transformed crew members in the laboratory suddenly stopped moving. Their pale faces showed confusion, as if they were fighting an internal battle between their human consciousness and the collective mind that controlled them. Engineer Sang Ho used the distraction to complete his work. The neurological inhibitor began flowing through the ship's atmospheric systems, designed to disrupt the specific brainwave patterns that the collective used to control absorbed minds. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The transformed crew members began changing, their pale skin returning to normal color, their mirror-like eyes becoming human again. But they were also clearly in pain, as their consciousness was torn between their individual human identity and the collective mind. The massive creature in the wormhole let out a sound that bypassed their ears and struck directly at their minds. It was a sound of rage and frustration, the cry of a predator losing its prey. "The inhibitor is working," Captain Boram observed. "The crew members are regaining their individual consciousness." But the battle was far from over. The collective consciousness began withdrawing its creatures from the wormhole. But as it did so, it left behind something terrible. The human crew members who had been transformed were dying. Their bodies could not survive the separation from the collective mind that had been sustaining them. "We're losing them," Dr. Hyojin said, her medical scanners showing the crew members failing life signs. "Their neural patterns have been too severely altered. They can't survive as independent consciousnesses anymore." Captain Hyunwoo's voice came through the mental link one final time. Dr. Hyojin, tell Earth Command what happened here. The collective is real and it will try again. It knows about human emotional patterns now. It will use our love against us, we will, she promised. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. One by one, the transformed crew members collapsed as their consciousness finally separated from the collective. They had chosen to die as individuals rather than live as part of the alien entity. Their sacrifice allowed the neurological inhibitor to fully take effect, cutting off the emotional energy that powered the wormhole. Without that energy, the portal began to collapse. The massive creature tried to keep it open through technological means, but interdimensional travel required more than just machinery. It needed the conscious intent and emotional drive of living beings. As the wormhole shrunk and finally disappeared, the investigation team found themselves alone in the laboratory. The Dahan systems returned to normal operation, no longer under the control of the collective consciousness. The rescue fleet reported that the strange dreams and visions affecting their crews had stopped, but the victory came with a terrible cost. All 3,847 crew members of the UES Dahan were dead, their bodies lying throughout the ship where they had collapsed in their final moments of freedom. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council's report on the Dahan incident became classified at the highest levels. The official story was that the ship had been lost in a spatial anomaly during the Battle of Kepler Station. The truth about the collective consciousness and its methods was shared only with the highest-ranking officials of each member species. Dr. Hyojin wrote in her final report, "The entity we encountered represents a fundamental threat to all conscious life in the galaxy. It specifically targets species with strong emotional bonds, using those bonds as both bait and power source. Humanity is particularly vulnerable because of their intense capacity for love, loyalty, and attachment to family. Commander Taemin added his own observations. The collective consciousness has absorbed hundreds of species across multiple galaxies. It now has detailed knowledge of human psychology and technology. It will certainly attempt to return, and when it does, it will be better prepared to exploit human weaknesses."